Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Today we are speaking with Becca Briggs. Becca she's a life coach who helps create your own healing by reconnecting to your true self, your passion, and connecting with your purpose. We're so happy to have you here, Becca. It was a little bit of a challenge getting together, Mercury retrograde and all that.
Never fails, but we are here.
We are here. I'm so glad to have you here. I'm really interested to hear about your story, what you're doing, how you're doing it, all the stuff. So I'll just turn it over to you and you can share. Let's start with your story. How did you get where you're at?
Sounds good. Thank you for having me, by the way. So how did I get where I am now? It's been a long journey thus far. I would say, I've always been a very creative driven person. I've always been somebody very into personal growth and development. I'd say my journey kind of started when I was it really started when I was like 18, 19 and was kind of my first real bout as an adult dealing with depression and anxiety. And at the time I, went to therapy and that I thought that was the only path for healing, and went to therapy. I tried antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication and realized, I would say after a couple years of this, that it wasn't for me. And I'm sharing this based on my own experience, not giving any kind of medical advice to anyone else. But I realized that I didn't want to feel like I had to be medicated to be functional in society. And that was essentially what I was told by people in my life, that you need to be medicated. And I was like, I don't think that that's why I'm unhappy in my life. I don't think that that's why I'm dealing with depression and anxiety. So at the time, my life was kind of a hot mess. I was in a very toxic relationship, was really clinging to him for support and guidance and not really getting that. And I thought that that was the best that I was going to get. And I was feeling really lost and unfocused on what I wanted in my life. So this all kind of happened around the same time and ended up kind of a weird sequence of events, ended up at a psychic that a friend recommended to me. It was my first time ever going to anything like this. I'd always been very practical, very by the book. And so this was a little woo-woo-y for me. But I went and she told me, you're here to do great things. You're here to excel. You're here to help others. You're here to do all these things, but you need to get out of your own way. And everything that's happening right now, she's like, for your health and safety, you need to get out of it. But you have to do that for yourself to then be able to go down this path, amongst a lot of other things that she told me. But that really stuck with me. And I ended up breaking up with my boyfriend 2 days later and moved out, got my life together, we'll say, and started on the path of really deeply healing and learning who I am and what I'm here to do. This led me down a multitude of paths of resources that I actually use now with my clients, because I won't take you through the entire journey, but then eventually now stepping into the position as a life coach is realizing that a lot of us are stressed and overwhelmed and anxious and depressed and unhappy. And it might not necessarily be a chemical thing, but it's really that we're not living in alignment to ourselves. We're living lives that are to other people's expectations or what we think that we need to do to be happy. And once we can take our power back and embrace who it is that we are, usually things will fall into place a lot easier. Or at least if there is any other resources needed, it becomes more clear than us just defaulting to what we're told we have to do. So I've been coaching now for 3 years, and I use, like I mentioned, like tools that I used and learned on my journey, such as Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, human design, NLP, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, like all these different resources to help support on a conscious and subconscious level.
They really do help. I mean, it's crazy when you understand who you are fundamentally with the Enneagram and the Myers-Briggs, and
Mm-hmm.
you just kind of, it gives you sort of permission to step into who you are instead of trying to like live according to some artificial standard that you've been raised to believe that this is what my life is supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's so much shame and judgment in our world that it's a lot of times, starting from a young kid, you're told that you're at fault for acting, thinking, feeling certain ways. And yeah, these resources, Enneagram is one of my personal favorites. It gives you that permission and validation of, I'm not wrong for feeling, thinking, acting this way. Like, this is why. And again, it gives you that power back of knowing how and why you do what you do. And if it's healthy for you, then lean into it. And if it's unhealthy for you, how to reframe it and retrain to not lean into those tendencies. But it's no fault of you as an individual. Like, it's not your
It's not
identity,
your
it's sense of
fault.
self and worthiness. It's just a part of your existence.
Yeah, a lot of times I think we get trapped in that, oh, I'm a terrible person, or I'm not worthy of love. It's usually around love,
Mm-hmm.
or having success in my life, because sometimes that can be an issue, or or I'm not even worthy of having money. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
another thing that a lot of people struggle with. They talk about the poverty mindset, but it's really programming. It's
Mm-hmm.
programming that we've allowed into our subconscious, that around abundance and wealth and what we think about. And it's not even what we personally think about, it's what we've been trained to think about people who are wealthy or who are in these positions that we think we want to be in. It's interesting how having these tools and having a life coach it's hugely helpful,
Mm-hmm.
because you help people with these tools to be able to see these big pitfalls in their life that are holding them back from really living a life that's abundant, but it's it feels good. I mean, there's
Yeah.
such a huge difference between living in anxiety and depression and getting up in the morning and it's like, gosh, I got these 24 hours. I hope it's enough to do all the things
Right.
that I want to do and not that I
Mhm.
have to do.
Yeah, totally. And one of the things that drew me into coaching was, and I had good experiences within therapy, and I do recommend, I think, therapy is a fantastic resource and people should do it for sure. What I found for myself was, after a while, the therapist that I did see, and I've seen, I think, 5 or 6 different ones over the years, we would get to a point where they would say, "Oh, you're so self-aware. You know what you have to do. I can't help you anymore." And I'm like, "But I'm still unhappy. Like, what do I do? What does this mean?" And one of the things I love about coaching is it's so forward focused. Yeah, we tune into the past a little bit to see how you got to where you are now. And especially with tools like timeline work, some of it is not even your own beliefs around yourself. It could be past life, it could be generational, whatever the case may be. But we're really focused on, okay, this is where you are and this is where you want to be. How do we bridge that gap? It's less on building the awareness from your past, because I think a lot of times we are struggling with feeling depressed or feeling anxious because we have the awareness. I have this awareness of these tendencies that I have, and I have this stress and pressure now of how do I do it? How do I get better? How do I be better? That's, too much of a good thing starts adding to the problem. So it's less focused on the problems, quote unquote problems that you have, and more focused on the tools and the resources for moving forward from this place.
Yeah, and being able to like take control of your thoughts around the things that brought you to the spot that you're at, instead of just looking at them and having anxiety or worry or regret or guilt over things that are just part of your journey. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not so often I find that we try to make it somebody's fault. And we should take the fault out of and judgment out of how your life is progressing or where you're at. It often will alleviate a lot of the depression about it not having hope for the future, because really depression is just about, is this going to be it? Is this that?
Yeah.
Is there any hope for me? And
Yeah.
the ultimate despair is that there is no hope. Why continue on? And I have actually been in that position myself, and it's not a good place to be. And it's not that it I think that it came from not really controlling the thoughts that I was having about where I was in life. And once I was able to shift that and reframe a lot of the loops that I was running through my head, life transformed amazingly. And I did try to find a therapist to help me, and I couldn't. There aren't any in my area that have the availability to help people, because so many people are suffering from this stuff. And life coaches, I think, have just stepped up to fill that gap, because there are so many people that need help.
I agree. And I think the other thing too is to note that, the life journey, it's not linear. Like growth and healing is not linear. So I think a lot of people, two things. One is either people think, I'm going to start doing the work and I'm going to get happier and I'm never going to be upset again. I'm never going to be depressed again. I'm never going to have to deal with this again. And that's just not true. I'll say, even with my own personal experience, I suffered with another bout of just depression last year and had to do this work that I'm, helping other people with for myself, to figure out how to change my situation to not still be in that slump anymore. And then two is, I think we can also get caught up in call it like the hamster wheel of growth, of constantly thinking that there's something that needs to be changed and healed and worked through. I was talking with somebody about this recently, even, is that the purpose of healing is to then get to enjoy life more fully, is you don't have these weights weighing down on you and layers weighing down on you. You free yourself from them so you can enjoy life. But if you're stuck in this wheel of always working, healing, doing stuff, introspection and assessing yourself and diagnosing yourself with all these different things, you're missing the part where you actually get to live and enjoy life fully. So being able to step out of that zone and be able to reap the benefits of your hard work.
I like that. Many people they're just like, I'm just gonna have to keep going on this journey, and it's like forever, and like suddenly I'm a monk.
Yeah.
No, life is for enjoying, and the tools are to help you embrace who you are and try to get you in alignment with your core and your ideals and your values, so that you can enjoy life, and so that you can surround yourself with people that align with you and want to support you and go on the same journey you're on, and not always being at odds with you. And sometimes we end up surrounding ourselves with people that are harming us. They don't mean to. I don't think people do it maliciously, but we find ourselves trying to appease people, just so we have companionship. And there's a whole group of people that really we belong to, It
Yeah.
reminds me of a story with my granddaughters where the long and the short of it is my youngest granddaughter, she's like, I belong to the people. It's like
Oh.
her sister's like, I'm responsible for you or something. She's like, no,
Mm.
I belong to the people. And she does belong to her people. There's people that she's put here to inspire and help, and it's not everybody. And I
Yeah.
think we're all kind of like that.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And that's one of the areas where a lot of the stress and pressures that we feel are trying to force things that aren't correct for us. And whether it's our own expectations or it feels comfortable and familiar, whatever it is, we fight against ourselves to fight for whatever it is to work, when if we can take a step back and assess what is correct for us versus not correct for us and take actions towards what is correct for us and releasing what isn't, it opens the space and it opens the doors for more of those to come through to you. And I'll say with my own experience is, as I mentioned last year, being really depressed. I've been living in Los Angeles for the past almost 6 years and was starting to not like it anymore and didn't know where I wanted to go. So I was just kind of staying there because I didn't know what else to do. And last year was like the pit of that, of everything I was trying to do wasn't working. I was clinging to my relationship and friendships because they were familiar, but it wasn't enough. I was stressed all the time and emotional all the time, and I was really unhappy. And it got to the point where I had to sit down with myself and say, you can either stay here, be a victim, be miserable, and keep trying to force this to work, which clearly isn't working, hasn't been working for a long time, or you can take your power back and do something different. Like something needs to change. Let's figure out what that is. And that I had this realization with myself. It was last October. And 6 months later, I moved to a town that I'd never visited before, but through, a little bit of intuitiveness and logistical planning, figured it was the best place for me. And I've now been out here for a few months and my whole life feels like a 180. Everything that I was trying so hard to make work is just naturally working without me forcing anything. I've never lived somewhere that's felt so much like home. I feel very seen and appreciated and valued for the work that I do out here. It's like everything that I wanted is working, but it required me to get out of my own way of forcing things to stay the same that they were before and be okay with stepping into the discomfort of this newness.
So I
And
have to ask, where'd you move?
I moved to Astoria, Oregon. So
So beautiful too.
beautiful town, tiny town. Not as tiny. I've lived in smaller towns, but I always swore I would never move to another small town. And then here I am.
It's where it's all happening. I live
But
in a tiny town too. There's
yeah,
things you can't do anymore unless you
no,
travel, but
yeah.
I think the trade-offs are so much greater and the people are
Hmm.
so real. It's
Hmm. Well, and
and
that's like, I realized I wanted community. Like that's been something I've been trying to have for a long time. And while I still have my friends in Los Angeles who I miss, I never felt a full community. And then when I started coaching, never found a community of other coaches and healers in LA that I vibed with. And a month after moving out here, I am working at a wellness center and have a community of friends, and I'm working at different retreats and events with people. Like it just is all happening. Um, and that's what happens when you get out of your own way. It actually
yeah,
gets to
just
happen. The opportunities get to open up for you.
yeah, and when you're curious and you allow things, I know it's a little woo-woo, but just listen to your intuition.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's not going to steer you wrong. And
Hmm.
and if you do something and it's like, oh no, this was really wrong. Maybe you need to reassess how you listen to your intuition.
Right. Well, that's like me moving out here was pretty woo. It's probably the most woo woo thing I've done is what happened was I had like 5 or 6 dreams in a row about moving to Oregon. And
Mhm.
after the 6th one, I was like, okay, like, guess I'm moving to
Get the
Oregon.
message.
Where am I going? And I started looking at different places on the map, and different people had different suggestions for me of where to go. But the second I saw Astoria on the map, it was like this electric current went through me. And I was like, okay, that's the place. I have no idea. But I guess that's the place. And at the time I had started, I wanted to plan a trip out here first because I was like, it's so insane to move somewhere that you've never been to. Like, I'll plan a visit and I'll go and check it out first. And I tried this like 3 different times, and my plans kept falling through for whatever reason. And I finally sat down with this again, like sitting down with myself and having a conversation. Thought finally had the realization, like, why do you want to go out there and visit first? You already know that this is where you want to go. And I realized that I was trying to look for either proof or validation that it was the right decision, or a reason to convince me not to go. And it was like, either way, it's irrelevant. Like, you've already decided, commit to your decision. And the second I did that, it was like a month later that I found an apartment out here and put in my 30 days and packed up and moved. It was very fast, but it was similarly is trusting your intuition and not letting the other clutter or the other beliefs or fears stand in the way of what that decision is.
We once bought a house sight unseen and moved across the
Mm.
country. We were living in San Diego and we moved to Colorado
Oh, what part of
and
Colorado?
Denver,
Oh, okay.
Highlands Ranch.
Okay.
The house, we piled everything into the trucks and we got there in the middle of the night and we had no idea where this place was. It was before GPS. So we're driving around. We finally had to wake our friends up in the middle of the night to tell us how to get to this place that we'd bought.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
It was exciting though. And looking back, I know why we were supposed to live there. But just just the adventures. Sometimes you just need to have an adventure in life. Just do it and see what happens.
Yeah, you never know.
You
So I
never
love
know.
I used to live in Castle Rock,
Mhm.
Colorado. That's
Yep,
where this
right there.
journey started. So it's small world,
Yeah. You went west, I went east.
right?
So you have this thing called moon circles on your website. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it started off as something that I just did for myself, and now I started doing them in person at the wellness center that I work at, and now I've kind of branched out to doing them, having some sort of virtual offer for people too, where on the Mondays closest to the full moon and new moon, you can sign up for it's like a private newsletter list on my website to join the Moon Circle community, and you'll receive an email that talks about the current moon and the sign that it's in, what the moon phase means and represents. It has reflective journal questions about this particular placement. I'm going to start touching a little bit on human design gates within it as well, just to branch out a little bit deeper. And you'll receive a link to a guided meditation that I do, and are added to a private group chat message thread so that we can support each other, and kind of, those times where everyone's just on the same page. They're like, what is happening in the ether right now? I'm kind of feeling this way. And then you talk to 3 more people and they're all like, oh yeah, I'm feeling this way too. I want to bring that in together, because I think there's a lot of times that we feel like we might feel overwhelmed, or we might feel lost, or a certain way that feels abnormal, and it feels like we're alone in it, but we're really not. We're all often feeling influenced by the same energies. You're talking about Mercury retrograde earlier, like
Yeah, this
all
is like
dealing with it.
we had trouble getting this podcast episode going, but I had the same, almost exactly the same problem with the one I did just before this one. It's just like,
Yeah.
yep, okay, we're just
Mhm.
rolling with it.
Yeah. And so bringing people together to talk and share their experiences, and supporting each other, and then also realizing that we're all in this together. It's been really great so far. And I would love if anyone feels called to join this community, please go to my website, beccabriggs.com, and sign up, because it's a beautiful resource, and I'm very grateful to hold the space.
Yeah, I'm going to sign up for sure.
Yay.
I love that. I love being connected with other people who are kind of on the same wavelength, that are trying to be the change they want to see in the world, but they're doing something about it. They're contributing to making the world a better place. I think communities like you've formed are really instrumental in that. So
thank you.
I'm very grateful for you for doing that.
Yeah.
So what's the one thing you want to leave the audience with today?
So the one thing, there's a lot to choose from, but if I had to say right now, just based on kind of where I'm at and what I'm realizing in life, is to be more open to experimenting, staying curious, and breaking the rules. A lot of these expectations and pressures that we have are only there because somebody said that was true and everyone accepted that as truth. But really, what is true for one person isn't necessarily true for everyone. So I find that the key to happiness and alignment is being open to discovering what that means for you. And if that means doing something a little out of the norm and unconventional and maybe a little bit woo or crazy, lean into it and do it, because this is the life that you get to claim as your own. Make it what you want it to be.
Yeah, it's an adventure, and just embracing it for its potential is so fun.
Yeah, we're all just experimenting and figuring it out as we go.
Yeah, and you don't have to be right.
You
just have to do it.
Yeah.
And if you're not right, you'll figure it out, and it'll just lead to something else. Your trip to Estonia, it's worked out really well for you, because it's probably what you were supposed to have done, and you did it. But had it not, it would have just been the stepping stone to the next thing you were doing.
Yeah.
And it may still be the stepping stone to the next thing you'll be doing. But for now, it feels good. And I'm really happy for you for that.
Oh, thank you. Me too. Last year was rough. So it feels good to be on the other side and have put in the work to get here.
Yeah. And to just lean into being in the valley and enjoying it before you hit the next mountain. Because there'll always be a next mountain.
Yes, there will be.
Thanks so much for joining us, Becca.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
It has been.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the You World Order, or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.